All right, let's start with a kind of radical question. What if the secret to real, genuine freedom isn't about getting more, but giving it all up? It sounds wild, right? Well, today we're diving into one of the most profound ideas in spiritual philosophy, Sanyasa Yoga, which is really the path of complete and total renunciation.
I mean, just think about it for a second. Everything in our world, in our culture, screams at us to chase more success, more stuff, a higher status. Sanyasa Yoga just throws that all out the window. It asks us to entertain this wild idea. What if true happiness is actually found in letting go of all of it? It's a path that flips the script entirely. It suggests that liberation, true freedom, doesn't come from adding more to our lives, but by, well, radically subtracting.
So what does letting go even mean in this context? It's a pretty big idea. To really get it, we've got to go right to the source, to the heart of the word sannyasa itself.
You know, the word itself paints such a powerful picture. In Sanskrit, you have sam, which means completely, and then nyas, which means to lay down. So put them together, and sannyasa literally means to completely lay down everything. And we're talking about everything, our ambitions, who we think we are in society, that core feeling of I and mine. It's a total surrender.
Okay, but why? Why would anyone ever choose a path that sounds so extreme? Well, the goal is something called moksha, and that's a state of ultimate spiritual liberation. And here's the key. This isn't about physically escaping the world. It's about escaping the prison of our own desires. It's this deep internal discipline that's all about freeing ourselves from that endless, exhausting cycle of wanting more and from the illusion that we're these separate, isolated individuals. The freedom it's promising is an inner freedom through and through.
Now, an idea this radical doesn't just pop up out of thin air, right? It actually grew out of this huge philosophical shift that happened over centuries in ancient India.
And you can see this fascinating evolution when you look back. In the early Vedic period, the focus was all on external stuff, rituals, actions, karma, basically doing the right things out in the world. But then, something started to change during the Upanishadic period. People started asking, hey, wait a minute, can these external acts alone really lead to liberation? And that question, it sparked this profound shift inward, towards jhana, which is liberating knowledge. Suddenly, renunciation was seen as maybe the most direct path to finding that inner wisdom.
All right, so if the goal is this deep inner liberation, how does a person actually practice it? This isn't just some vague, abstract philosophy. Sannyasa is a set of really rigorous disciplines, and they're designed to systematically, piece by piece, dismantle the ego. Think of it as a process of intentional dissolution. First, it starts with your actions. You stop doing things just for personal gain. Then it moves to your identity. You start letting go of all the labels that define you. Your job, your family, your social status, all of it. From there, you cultivate this thing called vairagya, which is basically dispassion, becoming indifferent to pleasure and pain, success and failure. And then finally, once all that external noise is quieted down, you can really turn inward to ask, who am I really? And the answer, the liberation, comes from that insight, from jhana, not from any external ritual.
But wait, this whole idea of total withdrawal from the world, that wasn't the final word on the matter. Because then, this hugely influential text, the Bhagavad Gita, comes along and just completely reframes the conversation. It offered this revolutionary reinterpretation that honestly made the core ideas of sannyasa accessible to everyone, not just a handful of ascetics living in a cave somewhere.
And this right here is the absolute game changer from the Gita. It basically argues that you don't have to physically leave the world to practice renunciation. Nope, the real work, the harder work, maybe the more powerful work, happens inside your own mind. It's not about what you're doing on the outside, it's all about your inner state of detachment.
So, let's break this down. On one side, you've got classical renunciation, right? That's the renunciation of action. You literally stop doing stuff. But the Gita proposes something completely different, renunciation in action. You stay in the world, you do your job, you take care of your family, but, and this is the big but, you give up your attachment to the fruits, to the results of what you do. This was absolutely revolutionary because it blew the doors wide open. Now, anyone, in any stage of life, could practice this profound art of letting go.
So, we've got these two paths, right? The forest ascetic who renounces action itself, and the everyday person in the world who practices renunciation in action. They seem so different,
But what's the single, powerful idea that ties them both together?
Well, here's the unifying thread. The core message, no matter which path you look at, has always been the same. Real, lasting freedom doesn't come from accumulating more. It comes from letting go. It's all about dissolving that illusion of being a separate me to realize something much deeper, a more universal consciousness.
So this path isn't about compromise. It is about absolute relinquishment. It's this radical call to find wealth not in what you own, but in what you don't, and to find power, true power, in surrender.
And that really brings us back to the beginning, to the question I want to leave you with. In a world that is constantly screaming at us to accumulate more success, more things, more followers, what does it actually mean to let go? For you, personally, what would you have to give up to truly be free?